Welcome to the Shudder. I've got 4 creepy ghost stories for you. They're short, but all most definitely Shudder-worthy chronicles of spirit activity. Okay, dim the lights and settle in. A few years ago, I had just been through a rough divorce from my high school sweetheart. My best friend had taken to distracting me by taking long road trips. One morning, we were on our way to Carlsbad, New Mexico, when we passed alongside a river dam. We were drinking cider and snacking when we decided to explore the dried riverbed. It was obvious that we weren't the first ones to be trekking through the riverbed. We could see human, canine, and feline footprints in the mud. I recall starting to feel an odd sensation, like the feeling of being watched. My friend caught my attention and called me over. There was a bone in the ground, what I now believe was a spine of something. At first, I thought it was a beef or pork bone of some kind. We continued looking around the riverbed when we found a strange rust-colored rock sticking out from the sand. When we got closer, we realized it was a half-buried little girl's shoe. I stepped back and ran forward, preparing to kick the shoe. Suddenly, I heard a little girl's voice shout, "No, please, don't." I looked around, but didn't see anyone but us. My friend asked why I stopped, and I replied, "Didn't you hear that little girl?" He replied, "No." Both confused, we decided to shrug it off and continued on our way. Meanwhile, the feeling that someone was watching us grew stronger. A few minutes later, we spotted another bone. Now, we began to get scared. The bone was clearly human. My friend called the non-emergency police number for Carlsbad and reported what we saw. 1 week later, I received a call from my friend that the Carlsbad police had called to report the bones we found were indeed human. During the investigation, we were questioned and eventually informed that the rust-colored rock actually wasn't a rock at all, but the shell of a pickup truck that had disappeared along with the family of 3 that was in it: a man, a woman, and their daughter. It made me think back to the girl's shoe sticking out of the mud and the voice that I heard that day. Jessica has always been into the paranormal and has experienced a fair number of encounters throughout her life. Recently married, she and her spouse, Charlie, moved into a beautiful little house in a quiet neighborhood. They had only been living there a short time when they started noticing strange occurrences. The first happened while Charlie was upstairs in bed and Jessica was downstairs watching television. Suddenly, he ran into the living room and asked if she had just been in the bedroom. She answered no, and Charlie panicked. He said that he was lying in bed and someone pushed the blanket up so his feet were exposed, and then he felt a cold hand caress his foot. To avoid the spirit, they moved to a different bedroom in the house, but the activity continued. They heard heavy footsteps going up and down the stairs. Bowls and pans would spin clockwise on the counter. A dark, full-bodied figure would walk past their bedroom door, then vanish. A knife was once lifted and thrown across the kitchen by an unseen force, and the dogs would bark into the corners of the house at nothing. Once, they even looked up into the window of the master bedroom and saw an elderly woman staring down at them. Eventually, the young couple had enough and spoke with their neighbors to learn about the history of the house. They learned that the house had been built in the 1970s, and the elderly lady who owned the house before them died at the age of 101. The two had no doubt this woman was the spirit tormenting the home, so Jessica decided to go upstairs and make peace. She informed the spirit that they intended to remain in the house, and they promised to keep it nice. They offered to help her cross over, but also said she was welcome to stay, if her presence became more peaceful. Since then, the couple has been living peacefully in the home, but the old woman will still occasionally make herself known. William loves his grandparents, but hates their house. The house has been in their family for over a century, and something has always felt off about it. The rooms would always feel cold, despite the air being off. and visitors often reported feeling like they were being watched. For about a month, he and his parents were living in the house. It was during this time an event happened that terrified him. One night, he woke around 3 a.m. and went to the bathroom. Suddenly, the bathroom door shut and locked behind him. The lock on the door was broken, so it shouldn't have been able to lock, let alone close on its own. Then, the light in the bathroom went out. William had always been interested in ghost hunting and had a ghost hunting app on his phone. He used it in the past, but assumed it didn't work. The app was supposed to tell the user whatever the ghost was saying. As he opened the app, he felt something or someone breathing down his neck. A few seconds later, the door unlocked and the radar read one word: run. He ran back and hid under the covers until he fell asleep. The next night, he woke again and went into the kitchen for a snack. It was there that he saw a dark figure pick something up from the pantry, turn to him, and then disappear. He tried to return to his room, but the living room door slammed shut as he walked toward it. Again, he felt someone breathing down his neck. He kept pulling at the door until it finally opened. Back in his room, hiding under the covers, he couldn't sleep because he kept hearing footsteps on the porch. The next night, he decided to try sleeping in the den. His phone was left open to the ghost hunting app when it picked up a signal. It read Quentin, his great-grandfather's name. That was the last activity he experienced before finally moving out. I grew up in an older home in Florida. I have 2 brothers, and since I was the only girl, I got to have my own room on the 2nd floor, a room that I would end up fearing at night. We lived in the house until we moved when I was 17. I don't remember anything strange happening until I was around 15 or 16, just the normal. Mom asking us kids where we put a glass or a book, small things that none of us had touched. In hindsight, that was probably either the man or the boy. I had come home late one night from a football game at my high school. It was around 11 o'clock. My younger brother had a friend over, and they liked to play pranks on me. When I poked my head in to say hello, I made sure to ask if they wouldn't mess with me that night, since I had to be up early for a soccer game. They both agreed and wished me a good night. The way my room was set up, the actual main part of the room had my TV, dresser, a couch, and coffee table that I would use for my friends staying over or when I was reading. My bed was in a little alcove that used to be a small porch, so that my bed was flush with the windows that looked into the backyard. I put my bag on the couch and walked over to the bed to go to sleep. It was the middle of the night when someone knocking on the wooden bed frame woke me up. I thought it was my brother and his friend who were just going to be annoying and run out of the room giggling. I flipped over to yell at them, but I didn't see my brother. There, standing at the foot of my bed, was a boy about the age of 12 with sandy brown hair that hung to his chin. He was wearing a purple hoodie and was smiling at me like a kid who got caught doing something he shouldn't have. I could see right through him to the rest of the room. I watched as he slowly faded away, completely terrified, until he was gone. I slept on the couch that night with the TV going in the background. I moved my bed to the center of the room after that. The next morning, I had almost talked myself out of it, thinking it was a dream or had really been the boys. I asked them the next morning if they had knocked on my bed, but both were sound asleep. My mom had overheard me and said she had seen the boy too. Since that night, we started to notice more strange things, but I'm positive it wasn't just the boy doing them. There was a man, a mean man, that I could feel at night in my room. We would hear footsteps walking around upstairs when all of us were in the kitchen. Books would fly from shelves and glasses would be pulled down and break. Our dogs would stand at the bottom of the stairs that led up to the 2nd floor and just growl. One of the most eerie things was the smell of cigarette smoke in the downstairs hallway. No one in our family smoked. One of the last things that happened before we moved was my brother waking up to see a tall, dark figure standing over me while I slept. The entire family at that point had seen or experienced something. The boy was just a kid who wanted to be known. The man was something else. When we finally moved, none of us were sad to drive away from that house for the last time. Well, there you go. Did you shudder? I hope you enjoyed those creepy ghost stories. If you did, take just a second and click that thumbs up. If I can get 1,000 likes on any video, it'll really boost the channel. But hey, I thank you all so much for your support, and I thank you just for listening. If you decide to subscribe, make sure you hit that notification bell so you can join me back here next time for the Shudder.